Hello everyone, broadcasting live. Oops, we're now live. Hello everyone, we're broadcasting live January 5th, 2016. We just did a Dhammapada video. I apologize for yesterday. I expected to be out for the morning, right? But then we went for lunch after this meeting. I went with this Chinese monk and Ivan. And then he took me up to see his 80-acre piece of property up at Stouffville. And then he said, is there anywhere else you want to go? He had a free day, I guess. And I said, I'm sure we can think of somewhere to go, just joking. And I started thinking. And then I said, I wonder how far we are from my father. It turned out we were about an hour away from where my father lives. So I gave him a call and we drove out there. Spent about an hour at my father's house. And it was funny, this Chinese monk, he said that was the first Western, non-Asian family he's ever, whose house he's ever been in. But just, he's been here 30 years in Canada. So it was quite an experience. He's a nice guy. We have different ideas of Buddhism, but we don't talk about it, so we're good. I didn't think, but I forgot that Amitabha is a Buddha. I was confusing with Avalokiteshvara, who's a Bodhisattva. But Amitabha is actually a Buddha. They have this idea that there's a Buddha up in the Pure Land who, if you chant his name or her name, I don't know, then you can go to their Western Pure Land, where all the Buddhas live, or you all live as Buddhas or something. I remember talking to a Chinese nun about this who came to practice Vipassana. I think I really struck a chord with her. It was really interesting because no one there had sort of challenged her faith, and I kind of challenged it. I said, how is that different from Christianity? And I think maybe she was even like, well, Christianity is also good. And I said, well, okay, but how is that different from the flying spaghetti monster? Do you know about the flying spaghetti monster?
Yes.
How is it different? And I really, no one had ever, I'm equipped with all this ammunition because I've been really thinking and talking and learning about all these different arguments that people have, and really kind of threw her off guard. I think it's interesting. I'm going to turn this off. Take that out. So tomorrow we have meditation. Today I started school again. I don't know about this school thing. My father's happy though. He's glad I'm doing it, so there's that. Ivan says I should do it. This Chinese monk. I don't know. Sort of have to finish this year out, but we'll see. Maybe next year I can take more interesting, more useful courses. It's nice to learn languages. We got those carob chips and stuff. Did you send that, Robin?
Yes. Well, the carob powder and the dandelion coffee and all that.
So we're hosting, for those of you who haven't heard, we're hosting this Hamilton Interfaith group. It's Hamilton Interfaith Peace Group, I think is what it's called. So it's different religions coming together to talk about peace and to find ways to spread peace. So every year they have a conference, and we're planning a conference. We're going to tell stories this year, stories about peace. And so this year our theme is the environment as well. So the idea is to talk about how the environment relates to peace. I mean, it's not a very Buddhist thing, but kind of, there are peace there are aspects of peace that involve the environment, I think. There's interesting stories about it, but the idea of there's a good one about being grateful, and at least being mindful, mindful that where our food comes from, and mindful of our environment. I think that's a big thing, because it's lack of mindfulness, lack of like just forgetting or not paying attention to what we're doing to the world. And Buddhism believes that we've been degrading since we started sticking to this earth. See, we were like angels, celestial beings, and then we began to associate with this globe, the earth, and then taste from it. And as we became more involved with it, our bodies became coarser until we were stuck to it. And as we got stuck to it, slowly became more and more coarse, more and more physical, until today. And so in modern times, we tend to think the opposite, right? We think we're advancing. We've built up all these neat tools and gadgets and so on, and this is really advancing. But at the same time, we're ignoring the fact that the world around us is disgusting, is just uglier and uglier every day, right? The rainforest we're cutting down, the air that we're polluting, the water we're polluting. There's an island the size of Texas, apparently, of plastic, an island of plastic the size of Texas, somewhere out in the Pacific Ocean, something like that. It's not more beautiful, it's not more comfortable, it's not more pleasant. Right? So the environment is interesting. I'm just interested in the peace aspect. I'm interested in being involved to talk about peace with these people and do my part, Anyway, so we're hosting that, and so we're trying to think of food as peace and mindfulness of food and that kind of thing. The mindfulness that our food should be medicine and you can't just eat anything. I don't want to obsess too much, but I thought, well, okay, if we're doing it, then we should get food. No, they said they wanted to talk this week about food as peace, because in a social level, food and peace are related. Slave labor and government manipulation, international manipulation of markets, turning countries into banana republics, or growing nothing but sugar in a country so that no one has anything to eat in the country, and taking all the land to grow food for luxury food for foreign entities. They put all the people on one small part of the land, and the rest of it is owned by the corporations. This is how many of the Central and South American countries work, I think. Or they used to, anyway. I don't know how it is now. Anyway, you have any questions?
We do.
All right, let's go through a few.
Okay, and just another comment. Samantha sent carob snacks that actually look delicious, unlike the rest of the stuff, which looks a little health foody. But we do have questions. If the universe has no purpose, why does it exist?
I don't know. That's the one question I can't answer. I have no idea why the universe exists. No idea whatsoever. Can't figure it out. So the answer we do have is what to do about it. Which is really more important. I mean, philosophers have struggled with that for the longest time. It's why they came up with God. I mean, it's this don't understand, ergo God. That's the argument. But that's always been the argument. It's raining. Why is it raining? It must be God. Lightning. What is that? Must be God.
And he's
Person
angry.
got sick, must be God. No, that's Satan, or whatever, you have, must be this, must be that. I did this chant and this person got healed of their sickness. Must be God. These atheists call it the God of the gaps. So for as long as there are gaps in our learning, we can, this is as long as God is going to last. As we learn more, God will disappear. But it's not even that. There are some things that we just can't know. I think part of it is being inside the system. We're good at figuring out systems that we're not involved in, but systems that we are involved in are problematic for us to understand. I mean, what we do know is that there's no entities. So the universe, of course, doesn't exist. All that exists is this moment, and this moment is constantly changing. I mean, the moment as an entity maybe exists. The experience exists. It's one experience, and one experience, and one experience.
Would it be possible to take the daily Dhamma audio and make a daily podcast from it? It would be nice to listen to it on the go whenever I can't tune in live or sit down to watch YouTube. I think we did.
It's pretty easy to create you want a feed, right? An RSS feed or something.
Yeah, we did point out that there is the live archive. So you can listen to it in MP3 format from there.
Yeah, it would be pretty easy. You just put together a PHP script. If someone wants to put together a PHP script, I can host it. It's pretty easy. I even have one, I think. Just adapt it, maybe. Yeah, it's pretty easy, actually. I probably got the script that we need.
Hello, Bhante. When I am at work, can I note working instead of each individual action?
It's not very useful. I mean, you're not going to learn much that way. It'll keep you kind of present, but yeah, not exactly. It's useful, absolutely, because you are working, and that's what you're doing. It keeps you present, so you will start to see things arising and ceasing. It's not wrong per se, but it's imprecise. That word is not going to get you to know very clearly every movement. It's not going to keep you on your toes, and it's not going to be able to help you distinguish physical and mental. It's blurry, you see, because working involves the thoughts and intentions and so on. It kind of blurs over too much.
Hello, Bhante. I found Buddhist beliefs and teachings to be based on experience and our clear understanding of reality. Hence, would like to know more about how rebirth is a confirmed occurrence. I guess the question is, how is everyone so sure rebirth happens at all?
Is this person a meditator? No, they are.
Yes.
Right. How is everyone sure rebirth occurs at all? We're not sure, most of us. But then we're not sure death occurs either. So the question is, which one is more likely? And that's, I think, up for debate. I think the reason we lean more towards death being likely, people in general, and not Buddhists, but people in general lean more towards the idea of death as opposed to continuation, is because we think of the world as in terms of entities, and an impersonal entity. So we think of things as being broken. We think of a light as being turned off, right? When you turn off your computer, the power is like sucked out of it. This is the idea. The computer is now off. When you turn off your car, the engine shuts down. Right? But that's all. First of all, it's imprecise, because when you shut off the engine, nothing disappears. It just, things stop moving, you could say, but all the components are still there. And the same goes with death. When a person dies, components don't disappear. But we think of the mind as like motion or something, right? But it's not like motion. This is the key. Yes, the motor does stop, but that's all the physical. And yes, the body does shut down. That's all physical. It's really kind of meaningless, because all of the components are still there. And the human body slowly disperses, but that's all it is. It just disperses. So the question is, what happens to the mind? Does the mind disperse? And so they argue that the mind is like motion, or the mind is like heat, or the mind is like sound. But it's not really. I mean, all of those things are still products of matter. They're still matter-based things. They're still what you would call, what John Locke would call secondary qualities of matter. They're not mental. The ideas of them, ideas of these things, are something quite different, or the experiences of these things that arise in the mind are totally different. And so, as Buddhists, we lean towards the idea of continuation because of this logical argument, but more importantly, because of the argument of the primacy of the mind. That the mind comes first. So we look at the universe in the terms of, from the point of view of experience, here and now. And from the point of view of experience, we don't have any reason to believe that the death of the body ends this experience. I mean, if you've meditated enough, it just becomes absurd to think that this would just suddenly stop for no reason. Because we can see it continuing. You can see it not just continuing, but giving birth to new branches as you like something, as you want something, as you strive for something, or as you hate something, as you reverse to something. It's organic, and it's mutating all the time. So to think that that should just stop is kind of a quaint sort of view from the point of view of an intensive meditator. I mean, it's easy for us to fall into that because we've been brought up with the idea that death is it. Some of us, others of us who are, I don't know that I ever was. I don't know if I ever thought that death was it. Maybe I did actually, and maybe it scared me. I remember when I was young, I was really scared of it. Some people don't. I mean, Christians are big on the one rebirth kind of thing, being reborn in heaven or hell. And they're often excited to hear that there's more than one, there's a possibility for more than one rebirth. But yeah, I mean, if you don't do a lot of meditation, it's really, and I think when you start meditating, it becomes a little confusing because you don't see it, and because of your views. But I think that's all they are, is their views of death. Anyway, Buddhism is all about the present moment. The key is past lives, future lives don't really matter because they're past and future. It's an important part of the philosophy because it encourages us to strive, knowing that there are consequences to our actions. But really, that's all you need to get out of this, is that our actions have consequences. And if you act as though your actions have consequences, it doesn't matter whether you believe in rebirth or not, because there's an implicit belief there. Even if you say, well, I don't, but I'm still going to act as though there are consequences, rather than act like a jerk just because you can get away with it. When you die, well, that's it. No, it's the worst, you're going to die. No, there's actually much worse than that. But if you act in terms of that's the worst that's going to happen, then it's problematic, because you can act in unwholesome ways. You're more likely to act in unwholesome ways. It's actually unpleasant for you. It creates problems for you when you act in unwholesome ways. So The most important thing is to act as though your actions have consequences. And learn to better yourself, to avoid unwholesome consequences.
Greetings, Bhante. My aunt told me she used to suffer from epilepsy when she was young, and as a result was put on medication for her seizures by her mid-20s. She was instructed to medicate every day for nearly 3 years, after which time her epilepsy was cured. She's now in her 60s and has not suffered from any seizure since. The doctor claimed through consistent dosing for periods of time, the medication would permanently change her brain chemistry. Would you please explain how the practices of formal insight meditation has similar effects, if any?
Gee, I don't know. You mean like for epilepsy?
No, I think permanently changing brain chemistry would insight meditation do that?
Well, my mother just sent me an article on it. I didn't read it. Yeah, the mind, everything changes your brain. If you do something enough, it changes your brain. As to what medication does, that's quite different. Medication changes it more, what's the word? More holistically, I guess. I don't know quite what the word is, but it's not pinpointing. Conscious activity like meditation will alter certain pathways in the brain. It's quite specific. But taking medication, it pickles your brain. So it's a different kind of change. I don't really know how it does it. And it can target, I suppose it can target certain parts, but not really. The brain, so these SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors. These are a lot of these psychoactive drugs that people take for anxiety, depression. They're not specific. They're not addressing the problem. Part of the problem is the pathways in the brain, the habits that have caused this, the pathways in the brain to change. But then you just soak that in this chemical that prevents the serotonin from leaving the bloodstream, I think, or something, so that you always have serotonin, which is a really nice feeling drug. But it's there's a word for this. It involves the entire brain. Global is, I think, the word I'm looking for. It's global. So it's a little bit different. Meditation and addiction also. Addiction is very much a specific pathway or a set of pathways that you're strengthening. So if you're mindful of your addiction, you slowly weaken and atrophy those connections. To simplify it, I'm not a neuroscientist. But
Greetings all. I wanted to check if one can have tea, coffee, or avoid it completely, since it can also be in the category of chemicals and drugs leading to some addiction.
yeah, it's not about leading to addiction. I mean, addiction is problematic, but the texts specifically mention alcohol. The Buddha specifically mentions alcohol because alcohol is something you can clearly, it's hard to deny that it changes the way you think. It prevents you. It makes it very difficult for you to be mindful. So that's more of the question. Does this drug make it difficult or impossible for you to be mindful? Coffee doesn't really do that. And certain other drugs might not. Cigarettes probably doesn't make it difficult. So take the difference between cigarettes and alcohol. Alcohol intoxicates you. Really, you're drunk. Cigarettes don't do that. So they're addictive, they're bad, but they're probably not in the same, they're definitely not in the same category as alcohol, and so they're probably not to be considered under the fifth precept. Now, the thing you have to understand about precepts is they're vows you take. You can take a precept, I undertake not to take cigarettes, or I undertake not to drink coffee. That's your precept. It's a good one. There's reasons why. But generally, the 5 precepts that the Buddha recommended, I don't think include either caffeine or cigarettes. It's not to say that there's anything good about cigarettes, and coffee, I think, is 50-50, but there's nothing good about gambling either, and it's not in the 5 precepts. So they're just rules that you take. They're not. I don't think they're. Don't think these. Just don't think these things are in the category of alcohol. So. Anyway, I have a couple more because it's 10 o'clock. I have Latin homework I still have to do.
There are a couple more. Did you want to put those off until tomorrow?
I'll go through them quickly. Let's not put. Oh, yeah, okay. Because tomorrow I don't have Dhammapada, so let's put them off.
Put them off until tomorrow. Okay.
You can bookmark that.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks, Robin. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, Bhante. Good night.